My parents said, "We'll help you take care of it," when I got pregnant at 15, then kicked me out the day I brought my baby home from the hospital. 7 years later, they showed up at my daughter's school in a Mercedes, started donating playground equipment and paying for field trips, then sued me for custody, claiming I was an unfit mother for raising her in a studio apartment while working night shifts at a diner. When I was 15, I had a boyfriend, and just like every other 15-year-old girl in the world, my boyfriend was toxic. Like, scream at you for interacting with a male teacher, then go through your phone toxic. So when he caught me going to the hospital to visit my godfather without telling him, he was determined to punish me. He told me the only way he'd let me get away with it was if I let him pop my cherry with no rubber. He said that would prove that I loved him, and I would have said no, but the anger in his eyes made me too scared of what would happen if I dared to refuse, so I said yes. Long story short, I got pregnant and never saw him again. I wish that was an exaggeration, but he blocked me on everything and transferred to a school across the country. I was so freaked out that I told my parents as soon as I found out. "We'll help you take care of it," was the first thing my mom said. Meanwhile, my dad just nodded quietly. I don't know why I believed them, but I did. And their words were the only reason I didn't get a baby unalive, because no one else wanted to come near me anymore. The entire school was calling me a W word, and they had spread rumors about Emmy trying to baby trap my ex-boyfriend, so I dropped out. All I had was my parents and everything they gave me, until I gave birth. Because instead of coming home to baby Anna's nursery, I came home to all of my stuff packed up into bags. I swear I thought they were pranking me, but then my mom said, "We're not cleaning up the mess you made." I looked over to my dad, who stood there with his arms crossed. "But I thought you said," "We just said that so you wouldn't terminate the pregnancy. But now we're done with you. Consider yourself disowned." I fell to the floor crying while baby Anna wept in my arms. I had nowhere to go, and instead of helping me drive somewhere, they retreated to their bedrooms and locked the door. I was shattered. That was my rock bottom. I ended up getting an Uber to my Aunt Becky's house, and she took me in. As soon as she showed me the bedroom, I crawled right in and fell asleep. I was still in the post-pregnancy state, and life felt like it was doomed. I woke up the next morning at 4:30 a.m. to Becky shaking me awake. "If you're staying here, then you have to follow the rules," was all she said before handing me a sweeping brush. "You have to do your fair share of everything. 2 hours of house chores minimum. You have to cook me 5 dinners a week. Showers are 5 minutes long max. And most importantly, if your baby wakes me up more than once in a week, I will kick you out." Well, it was either Aunt Becky's house or the streets, so I just nodded, ready to accept my new life of modern-day slavery. The next few years of my life were as bad as you'd expect. Every time Anna cried at night, adrenaline would pump through my blood, and sometimes I even had to sit with her in the front garden during winter. And Aunt Becky abused me in every way possible, so much so that it reminded me of my ex-boyfriend, and I only had one lifeline: a job at a 24-hour diner where the manager, Rosa, let me bring Anna during night shifts. She'd sleep in the break room while I served coffee to truckers and studied for my GED between orders. The day Anna turned 4, I finally had enough saved: $1,200 and a promise of a studio apartment from Rosa's cousin. I packed our things while Becky was at work. Not that there was much to pack. Anna's drawings, the teddy bear Rosa gave her, my GED certificate. That studio apartment was 400 square feet of heaven. On our first night, Anna and I ate McDonald's on the floor and she said, "Mama, can we be loud here?" When I nodded, she squealed at the top of her lungs, then looked at me with wonder when no one yelled at us. That's when they showed up. I was at a pickup, helping Anna carry her solar system project to the car, when I saw them, my parents, standing next to a Mercedes, looking like they'd stepped out of a catalog. My dad wore a suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. Suddenly, my mother was walking toward us. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Anna with tears in her eyes. "You must be Anna." I shoved past them and practically ran to the car with Anna holding my hand, and the moment I saw them drive away too, I knew they'd be back. Parents who disown you for 7 years don't suddenly grow hearts. They grow strategies. Within a week, expensive toys appeared at Anna's school. Her teacher mentioned generous grandparents had paid for the entire class field trip. Other parents started looking at me differently, whispering about the teen mom whose wealthy parents were trying to help. The legal papers came 3 months later. Their lawyer had been building a case, documenting my night shifts, my studio apartment, my GED instead of a proper education. Meanwhile, they'd been playing the perfect grandparents at Anna's school. The principal called me in for a meeting where she gently suggested I should be grateful for their involvement. I sat there gripping my purse straps while she explained how my parents had donated new playground equipment and offered to fund the after-school program Anna attended. I drove straight to Rosa's diner after that meeting. She took one look at my face and poured me coffee without asking. I spread the legal papers across the counter, my hands shaking as I pointed to each accusation. Unfit living conditions, inadequate supervision, educational neglect. They'd twisted every sacrifice I'd made into evidence against me. Rosa studied the papers while I wiped down tables, needing to keep my hands busy. The dinner rush came and went. Anna colored in her corner booth, occasionally showing me her drawings of rainbows and stick figures. Every time I looked at her, my chest tightened. They wanted to take her from me. That night, I called every legal aid number I could find. Most went to voicemail. The ones that answered told me there were waiting lists, income requirements, paperwork to file. One receptionist sighed when I mentioned custody and wealthy grandparents. She didn't need to say what we both knew. Money talks in family court. I started documenting everything. Every gift they sent to school, every interaction, every whispered conversation I overheard at pickup. Other parents had started inviting Anna to play dates, but their real interest was obvious. They wanted to know about my parents, about the Mercedes, about why someone with money would let their daughter live like this. The worst part was watching Anna's confusion. She'd come home talking about the nice lady who bought ice cream for her whole class, the man who knew her name and said she looked just like her mama. I'd kneel down and remind her about stranger danger, but how could I explain that the strangers were her grandparents? grandparents. 2 weeks after the papers arrived, they escalated. I found Anna's teacher waiting by my car after school, holding an envelope. Inside were photos, professional ones of my parents with Anna at school events I didn't even know about, the spring concert where I'd been working, the field day when I'd had a double shift. In every photo, they stood where I should have been. I confronted the principal the next morning. She shifted uncomfortably, explaining that grandparents were always welcome at school events. When I pointed out they weren't listed as emergency contacts or approved for pickup, she mentioned their generous donations again. The message was clear. Money had already opened doors I couldn't close. Rosa introduced me to other single moms at the diner. They'd come in during slow hours, and we'd share stories while our kids played together. One had fought her ex's parents for years. Another had lost custody temporarily before getting her son back. They taught me about guardian ad litems, about court evaluators, about how to present myself to impress people who judge my worth as a mother in 15-minute increments. I practiced my story in the mirror, how I'd finished my GED while working nights, how Anna had never missed a doctor's appointment or a meal, how we read together every night, how she was ahead in reading, how her teachers praised her behavior. I learned to quantify love in ways the court would understand. My parents kept pushing. Expensive clothes appeared in Anna's cubby. When I donated them, new ones replaced them. They enrolled her in activities without asking, then documented when I couldn't get her there because of work. They painted a picture of a struggling mother too proud to accept help, while I saw the trap closing around us. The breaking point came when Anna got sick at school. Just a stomach bug, but the nurse called me first. I was in the middle of a shift, 40 minutes away. By the time I arrived, my parents were there. They'd somehow become emergency contacts. My mother held Anna's hair back while she threw up, and my father talked quietly with the nurse about proper care. I scooped Anna into my arms, but she was too weak to protest. My mother followed me to the parking lot, speaking for the first time since that day at pickup. She talked about Anna deserving better, about private schools and music lessons, about opportunities I couldn't provide. I buckled Anna into her booster seat while my mother listed everything money could buy. That night, I held Anna while she slept off the fever. Her small hand gripped mine, and I whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. I'd been so focused on surviving that I'd forgotten what thriving looked like. Maybe that's what they were counting on, that I'd see their offer as rescue instead of robbery. I started preparing for war. Every paper from the past 7 years went into labeled folders. Pay stubs showing consistent employment, rent receipts proving stable housing, photos of Anna's birthday parties, small but full of love, report cards showing her progress. I built a paper trail of adequate parenting, knowing it might not be enough. The other moms helped me practice for the evaluation. They drilled me on questions about discipline, nutrition, education plans. They taught me phrases like age-appropriate expectations and consistent routine. I learned to translate my life into court speak, to make love sound logical and measurable. My parents' lawyer sent more documents, depositions from Anna's teachers praising their involvement, financial statements showing what they could provide, photos of their house with its spare bedrooms and big backyard. They built their case on everything I couldn't give her, while I built mine on everything I already had. The custody evaluation appointment arrived faster than expected. I dressed Anna in her favorite purple dress and braided her hair the way she liked it, with the little butterfly clips Rosa had given her. My hands trembled as I tied her shoes. The evaluator's office sat in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. I carried Anna inside, her small hand squeezing mine. The waiting room had toys scattered across a worn carpet. Anna immediately gravitated toward a dollhouse while I filled out forms asking about our daily routines, medical history, educational plans. My handwriting looked shaky against the crisp white paper. Other parents sat around us, some alone, some with lawyers. I recognized the exhaustion in their faces. The evaluator called us back after 20 minutes. She introduced herself to Anna first, crouching down to her level. Anna hid behind my leg initially, then slowly warmed up when the woman complimented her butterfly clips. They played with blocks while I answered questions about our living situation, my work schedule, Anna's development milestones. I watched Anna stack towers and knock them down, completely unaware that this stranger would help decide our future. The evaluator took notes on everything: how Anna asked permission before taking more blocks, how she shared with another child who wandered over, how she looked to me for reassurance when uncertain. Every interaction became evidence. After the appointment, I drove to the legal aid office Rosa had recommended. The waiting room overflowed with people clutching manila folders like life preservers. I signed in and found 2 plastic chairs in the corner. Anna colored in her activity book while we waited. 3 hours passed before they called my name. The paralegal who reviewed my case looked barely older than me. She flipped through my documentation, occasionally asking for clarification. When she reached the photos of my parents at Anna's school events, she paused. I explained about the donations, the surprise enrollments, the calculated generosity. She made notes, but her expression remained neutral. She handed me a stack of forms to complete and a list of additional documents to gather: birth certificates, vaccination records, proof of income for the past 2 years. The list seemed endless. She explained that I qualified for limited assistance, meaning they could help with paperwork, but I'd largely be representing myself. My parents would have a full legal team. I spent the next weeks gathering everything they requested. Rosa adjusted my schedule so I could visit government offices during business hours. I stood in line at the health department for vaccination records, waited at the Social Security office for official documents, made copies of everything in triplicate. Anna came with me everywhere, eating snacks from my purse and napping in waiting room chairs. The other single moms from the diner became my unofficial support team. They took turns watching Anna when I had appointments she couldn't attend. They shared their own custody battle stories, warning me about tricks lawyers might use. One mother, Maria, had lost custody for 6 months before getting her daughter back. She taught me to document everything in a composition notebook, dating each entry. My parents escalated their presence students at Anna's school. They volunteered for reading time, chaperoned field trips, attended every single event. The principal started sending home flyers about activities specifically when they knew I'd be working. Anna came home talking about the special lunch her grandparents had brought for her entire class, complete with cupcakes from an expensive bakery. I found Anna's teacher after school one day, organizing papers at her desk. I asked about limiting my parents' involvement, explaining the custody situation. She looked uncomfortable, mentioning the new computers they donated to the classroom. She suggested that having involved grandparents was a blessing many children didn't have. I left feeling more isolated than before. The court-appointed mediator scheduled our first session for a Tuesday morning. I arranged coverage for my shift and dressed in my only professional outfit, a black skirt suit I'd found at Goodwill. Rosa had helped me practice what to say, how to present myself as stable and capable despite my circumstances. My parents arrived with their lawyer, a woman in a designer suit who immediately took control of the conversation. They presented their proposal, full custody with generous visitation rights for me. They'd prepared a financial package showing private school tuition, college savings, medical insurance, extracurricular activities. Everything I couldn't provide laid out in glossy folders. I presented my own case with shaking hands, the stable home I'd maintained for 4 years, Anna's excellent progress reports from school, the community of support I'd built, the bond between mother and daughter that no amount of money could replace. The mediator took notes, asking occasional questions about my work schedule and childcare arrangements. My mother spoke about their concern for Anna's future. She described finding out about their granddaughter through mutual acquaintances, their shock at our living conditions, their desire to provide opportunities. She painted a picture of rescue, carefully avoiding any mention of the 7 years they'd pretended we didn't exist. The mediator suggested a graduated plan where my parents could have scheduled visits while I retained custody. Their lawyer immediately rejected this, insisting Anna needed stability and resources I couldn't provide. They produced photos of their home, the bedroom they'd prepared for Anna, the private school they'd already interviewed with. I left that session feeling like I'd already lost. My composition notebook full of Anna's milestones seemed pitiful compared to their professional presentation. But Maria reminded me that judges had seen it all before. They knew the difference between love and money, between providing and buying. My parents started showing up at the diner during my shifts. They'd sit in a corner booth, ordering coffee and watching. Anna would wave from her coloring spot, confused why I kept her at our usual table instead of letting her visit. Rosa started seating them in a different section, but their presence hung over every shift. One night, Anna asked why the nice people from school kept coming to see us. I struggled to explain, finally telling her they were family we hadn't seen in a long time. She accepted this with 4-year-old simplicity, more interested in her chicken nuggets than complex adult relationships. But I knew the questions would get harder. The custody evaluator scheduled a home visit. I spent days preparing, deep cleaning our tiny apartment, organizing Anna's corner with her books and toys displayed neatly. I bought fresh flowers from the grocery store, baked cookies to show I could provide homemade touches. The morning of the visit, I realized how desperate it all looked. The evaluator arrived precisely on time, clipboard in hand. She walked through our space, taking notes on everything. The safety locks on cabinets, the educational posters I'd hung on the walls, the schedule I'd posted showing our daily routine. Anna proudly showed off her drawings taped to the refrigerator, explaining each one in detail. She asked to see where Anna slept. I showed her the small alcove I'd converted into Anna's room, with curtains for privacy and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Anna demonstrated how she could reach her bookshelf and toy box without help, clearly proud of her independence. The evaluator noted everything. During the interview portion, Anna played nearby while I answered questions about discipline, nutrition, emergency plans. I'd prepared for weeks but still stumbled over some answers. When asked about backup childcare if I was sick, I mentioned Rosa and the other diner moms. When asked about enrichment activities, I talked about library story time and free museum days. After she left, I found Anna arranging her stuffed animals for a tea party. She invited me to join, serving imaginary tea in plastic cups. We played until bedtime, her laughter filling our small space. I tucked her in that night wondering if these simple moments would be enough to compete with everything my parents could offer. The next court date arrived with another thick envelope from my parents' lawyer. They'd hired a child development expert who'd observed Anna at school without my knowledge. The report highlighted concerns about her social development, suggesting she needed more structured activities and peer interaction than I could provide. I met with the legal aid paralegal again, going over their latest filing. She helped me prepare a response, but warned that the expert testimony would carry weight. I needed my own evidence of Anna's healthy development. She suggested getting letters from Anna's teacher, doctor, anyone who'd seen us together regularly. I spent the following days collecting support letters. Rosa wrote about the years she'd watched me raise Anna, the dedication she'd witnessed. Anna's pediatrician confirmed she met all developmental milestones. This mom's strength is incredible. The way she turned that tiny apartment into a real home for Anna, with those glow-in-the-dark stars and her own little space behind curtains, shows pure love. Even some regular customers from the diner offered to write character references. Each letter felt like a small shield against my parents' attacks. My parents' next move targeted my work schedule directly. They filed a motion expressing concern about Anna spending nights at the diner, calling it an inappropriate environment for a child. They included photos taken through the window, showing Anna asleep in the break room while I worked. The images looked damaging out of context. The mediation session grew more hostile. Their lawyer questioned every aspect of my parenting, from nutrition choices to educational plans. She asked why I hadn't pursued higher education, why I hadn't sought better employment, why I hadn't accepted help from Anna's grandparents earlier. Each question felt designed to make me look stubborn and prideful. I tried to explain about the 7 years of silence, the abandonment when I needed them most, but their lawyer redirected every time. focusing on the present and future rather than the past. My parents sat quietly, occasionally shaking their heads as if saddened by my choices. Their performance was flawless. The mediator suggested another graduated visitation plan. This time, my parents considered it briefly before their lawyer intervened. They wanted overnight visits immediately, arguing that Anna needed to bond with them properly. The thought of Anna sleeping in their house, possibly wondering why I wasn't there, made my stomach clench. After the session, I sat in my car in the parking garage, too drained to drive. Anna's car seat sat empty behind me while she was at school. I thought about running, just packing up and leaving town, but I knew they'd find us, and running would only make me look guilty of something. Rosa noticed my declining mood and started scheduling me with overlapping shifts with Maria and the other moms. They formed a protective circle, sharing their own war stories and reminding me that I'd survived worse. Maria showed me the notebook from her own custody battle, pointing out how the tide had turned in her favor. The court appointed a guardian ad litem to represent Anna's interests. She was a retired teacher who scheduled meetings at times convenient for my work schedule. Unlike the evaluator, she seemed genuinely interested in understanding our life. She visited during Anna's bedtime routine, watched us read together, saw the genuine affection between us. She also met with my parents, visiting their home and reviewing their proposal. When we met afterward, she asked careful questions about the 7-year absence. I showed her the discharge papers from the hospital, the date Anna was born, the timeline of silence that followed. She made notes without comment. My parents increased their pressure at Anna's school. They funded a new playground, specifically requesting it be named Anna's Garden in honor of their granddaughter. The dedication ceremony was scheduled during my work hours. Anna came home with a photo of herself standing between them at the ribbon cutting, their hands on her shoulders possessively. The guardian ad litem observed several of these interactions. She attended a school event where my parents arrived with professional photographers, documenting their time with Anna. She watched them distribute gifts to Anna's classmates, ensuring their granddaughter's popularity. She saw the careful orchestration of their campaign. During her final interview with me, she asked about my goals for Anna's future. I talked about college, about opportunities I wanted to provide, about raising her to be independent and strong. She asked how I planned to achieve these goals on a waitress salary. I admitted I didn't have all the answers, but was committed to finding ways. The final mediation session before court arrived. My parents made their last offer, shared custody with them as primary guardians. They'd pay for my education if I wanted to pursue it. They'd ensure I had quality time with Anna. They presented it as generous, a win-win situation. Their lawyer emphasized how lucky I was to have parents willing to step up. I refused. The mediator warned me about the risks of going to court, the possibility of losing everything. But accepting their offer felt like admitting I'd failed as a mother. Anna wasn't a mistake to be fixed or a problem to be solved. She was my daughter, and I'd raised her alone for 4 years. That had to count for something. The guardian ad litem submitted her report the week before court. I wasn't allowed to see it in advance. My legal aid paralegal said this was standard but offered no prediction about its contents. I spent that week barely sleeping, running through every possible recommendation she might make. My parents made one final attempt at pressure. They showed up at the diner with a new lawyer, someone who specialized in grandparent rights. He explained how the court would view their established relationship with Anna, their financial resources, their stable home. He suggested I consider what was truly best for my daughter. Rosa kicked them out when their voices grew too loud, but the damage was done. Other customers had heard the exchange, seen the lawyers, witnessed my humiliation. I finished my shift mechanically, going through the motions while my mind raced. Anna colored quietly, sensing the tension without understanding it. 3 days before court, Anna got sick again. Just a cold, but she clung to me constantly, wanting extra stories and cuddles. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the day holding her on the couch. We watched her favorite movies and ate soup. She fell asleep on my chest, her breathing raspy but peaceful. That evening, my parents sent flowers to the apartment. The card expressed concern for Anna's health and offered to pay for a private doctor. I threw them in the dumpster, petals scattering across the parking lot. Anna watched from the window, asking why I threw away the pretty flowers. I told her they weren't really for us. The night before court, the other moms organized a support dinner. They brought homemade dishes to Maria's apartment, creating a feast of comfort food. Anna played with the other children while we talked strategy one final time. They drilled me on possible questions, reminded me to breathe, told me to focus on Anna rather than my parents. I barely slept that night. Anna crawled into my bed around midnight, saying she had a bad dream. I held her close, memorizing the feeling of her small body against mine. She mumbled about butterflies and playground swings before falling back asleep. I stayed awake, watching her breathe, wondering if this might be our last normal night together. Morning came too quickly. I dressed carefully in my black suit, now familiar from multiple court appearances. Rosa arrived early to take Anna to school, promising to bring her to court later if needed. Anna hugged me extra tight, somehow sensing the day's importance. I watched Rosa's car disappear around the corner before heading to my own vehicle. The courthouse looked imposing in the morning light. I arrived early, finding a quiet corner to review my notes one final time. Other families filtered in for their own battles, the hallway filling with whispered conversations and muffled tears. I recognized the universal look of parents fighting for their children. My parents arrived with an entourage, 2 lawyers, their child development expert, and a woman I didn't recognize carrying multiple briefcases. They set up at their table like an army preparing for battle. My single legal aid paralegal looked overwhelmed before we even began. I straightened my shoulders and took my seat. The judge entered precisely at 9, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes but a stern expression. She reviewed the case file before addressing the courtroom. She noted the unusual circumstances, the grandparent seeking custody after years of absence, the young mother who'd raised the child alone. Her tone gave nothing away. My parents' lawyer presented their case first. A multimedia presentation showed their home, Anna's potential school, the activities they'd enrolled her in. They painted a picture of opportunity and stability. Their expert testified about child development needs, educational advantages, the importance of resources. Every word felt like another brick in the wall they were building around Anna. When my turn came, I stood on shaking legs. I told our story simply, without drama or embellishment. The pregnancy at 15, the abandonment, the years of struggle and growth. I showed photos from Anna's birthdays, report cards praising her progress, the support letters from our community. I focused on the bond we'd built through adversity. The Guardian ad litem presented her report. She acknowledged my parents' resources but questioned their motivations after 7 years of absence. She detailed Anna's attachment to me, her thriving despite modest circumstances, the loving environment I'd created. She recommended maintaining primary custody with me while establishing a visitation schedule with grandparents. My parents' lawyer immediately objected, arguing that the Guardian hadn't fully considered Anna's future needs. The judge allowed further testimony. They brought up my work schedule again, the nights at the diner, the limited opportunities I could provide. They suggested the Guardian had been swayed by emotion rather than facts. The judge asked to speak with Anna in chambers. I watched my daughter walk away with the bailiff, her purple dress bright against the dark wood. 30 minutes passed like hours. When Anna returned, she ran straight to me, burying her face in my lap. The judge watched this interaction carefully before calling a recess. During the break, my parents' lawyer approached with another offer: temporary custody with them for 1 year, while I established better circumstances. I could finish school, find day employment, secure better housing. What an intense courtroom showdown. Anna running straight to her mom after talking to the judge. That moment says everything. They presented it as a practical solution. I refused again, knowing 1 year would turn into forever. Court resumed with closing arguments. My parents' team emphasized Anna's needs, their resources, the opportunities they could provide. They painted me as a stubborn young woman putting pride before her daughter's welfare. Their presentation was polished, professional, persuasive. I spoke from the heart about what Anna needed most: the mother who'd been there every day of her life, the one who knew her favorite bedtime story, her fear of thunder, her love of butterflies. Money could buy many things, but it couldn't buy the history we shared. I asked the judge to see beyond the financial statements to the family we'd built. The judge retired to consider her decision. We waited in the hallway, my parents at one end with their team, me at the other with my paralegal. Anna sat beside me, playing with a small toy Rosa had given her for comfort. The minutes stretched endlessly. When the bailiff called us back, I held Anna's hand tightly. The judge began by acknowledging the complexity of the case. She recognized my parents' genuine interest in Anna's welfare and their significant resources. She also noted the 7-year absence and the timing of their sudden involvement. She spoke about Anna's best interests, the importance of stability and continuity. She praised the life I'd built despite tremendous obstacles. She expressed concern about my work schedule but acknowledged the necessity and my arrangements for Anna's care. Each word felt like a step toward either salvation or disaster. The ruling came in parts. Primary physical custody would remain with me. My parents would receive graduated visitation rights, starting with supervised visits and potentially progressing to overnight stays. They could contribute to Anna's education and activities but couldn't make unilateral decisions. Any changes would require court approval. My parents' lawyer immediately protested, requesting clarification on various points. The judge stood firm. She emphasized that money alone didn't determine a child's best interests. She noted Anna's clear attachment to me and the trauma that separation would cause. She scheduled a review hearing in 6 months to assess the arrangement. I held Anna tighter as the judge outlined the visitation schedule. Every other Saturday initially, supervised by a court-appointed monitor. My parents could attend school events but couldn't remove Anna without permission. They were prohibited from discussing custody arrangements with Anna or undermining my parental authority. The judge addressed my parents directly, suggesting their resources could best serve Anna by supporting the existing family structure rather than replacing it. She mentioned education funds, medical insurance, enrichment activities, all ways they could contribute without disrupting Anna's stability. Her message was clear: be grandparents, not replacement parents. As the gavel fell, I felt my knees weaken. Anna looked up at me, confused by the formal proceedings but sensing my relief. My paralegal squeezed my shoulder, whispering congratulations. Across the room, my parents conferred with their lawyers, clearly planning their next move. But for now, we'd won. I walked out of the courthouse clutching Anna's hand, my legs still shaky from the verdict. The supervised visitation would start in 2 weeks. My parents' lawyer had already filed paperwork requesting clarification on several points, but the judge's decision stood firm. Anna skipped beside me, humming a tune from her favorite cartoon, blissfully unaware of how close we'd come to separation. Rosa waited in the parking lot with Maria and 3 other moms from the diner. They surrounded us with hugs and congratulations, but I could see the worry in their eyes. We all knew this wasn't over. My parents had resources for appeals, modifications, endless legal maneuvers. The judge had given us breathing room, not permanent victory. That first supervised visit arrived too quickly. The court-appointed monitor, a soft-spoken woman named Victoria, met us at the community center. Anna wore her purple dress again, the one she'd worn to court. She kept asking why we were meeting the nice people from school in this new place. I'd explained as simply as possible, but 4-year-olds don't understand legal boundaries. My parents arrived precisely on time, carrying wrapped presents despite the monitor's previous instructions about gift limits. Victoria intercepted them, explaining the rules again. 1 small toy or book per visit. Nothing expensive, nothing that would create obligation or comparison. My mother's face tightened, but she nodded and selected a single coloring book from their pile. I sat in the observation room, watching through the one-way glass as Anna tentatively approached them. She remembered them from school but seemed confused by the formal setting. My father knelt to her level, and I saw him struggle with what to say without the props of expensive treats or grand gestures. The monitor guided them toward the activity activity table. For 2 hours, they colored and played with blocks under Victoria's watchful eye. Anna slowly warmed up, showing them her drawing skills and chattering about her friends at school. My mother kept glancing at the mirror, knowing I watched. When Anna mentioned our bedtime stories, my father asked which were her favorites. She listed 5 books we read regularly, all library copies we'd renewed countless times. After the visit, Victoria walked Anna back to me while my parents waited inside. Anna seemed puzzled by the formal goodbye, asking why her grandparents couldn't come with us. I explained they had their own home to go to, and we'd see them again in 2 weeks. She accepted this with a shrug, more interested in showing me the picture she'd colored. The pattern continued for 6 weeks. Every other Saturday, same routine. My parents gradually learned to interact with Anna without their wealth as a crutch. They started bringing homemade cookies instead of store-bought treats, played simple games instead of offering elaborate outings. Victoria reported positive interactions but noted Anna's consistent preference to return to me after each visit. At work, I noticed changes too. The other parents at Anna's school had stopped their invasive questions about my parents. The principal no longer mentioned their donations in every conversation. Without the ability to throw money at the situation, my parents' influence waned. They still attended school events, but now they sat in regular chairs like everyone else, without photographers or special treatment. Rosa adjusted my schedule to ensure I never worked during visitation times. She'd become fiercely protective, screening any customers who seemed too interested in our situation. The diner moms created an informal support network, sharing pickup duties and play dates. Anna thrived with her extended chosen family, no longer confused by the competing attention. 3 months in, Victoria recommended progressing to unsupervised visits in public places. The thought terrified me, but I knew refusing would look uncooperative. We met at the park, my parents pushing Anna on swings while I sat on a nearby bench, pretending to read. They followed the rules, staying within sight, returning her at the agreed time. My mother approached me once during a park visit, while my father helped Anna navigate the monkey bars. She started to speak about missed opportunities and second chances. I stood and walked to the playground equipment, focusing on Anna instead of engaging. The message was clear. Co-parenting didn't require reconciliation. Anna's questions grew more complex as she approached 5. She wanted to know why her grandparents lived in a different house, why they only saw her sometimes, why I looked sad after visits. I kept explanations simple and age-appropriate, focusing on how families come in all shapes and sizes. She seemed satisfied with answers that didn't assign blame. The 6-month review hearing approached with another flurry of legal documents. My parents requested overnight visits, arguing they demonstrated reliability. Their lawyer submitted reports from the visits, photos showing happy interactions, testimony from Victoria about their improved behavior. I submitted my own documentation. Anna's continued stability, her academic progress, her secure attachment to our routine. Before the hearing, I met with the guardian ad litem again. She visited our apartment, now decorated with Anna's growing art collection, and new educational posters I'd found at garage sales. Anna showed off her reading skills, proudly demonstrating how she could sound out simple words. The guardian took notes on our bedtime routine, our meal preparations, the quiet stability of our life. She also observed a visitation at the park, watching Anna play with her grandparents while maintaining clear boundaries. When they suggested ice cream after the park, Anna looked to me for permission first. When it was time to leave, she hugged them goodbye but ran to me without hesitation. These small moments spoke volumes about where her security lay. The review hearing felt less intimidating than the original trial. The judge reviewed 6 months of successful visitation, noting compliance from all parties. My parents' lawyer argued for expanded access, but the judge questioned the rush. Anna was thriving under the current arrangement. Why disrupt what was working? The judge maintained the existing schedule with minor modifications. Visits could extend to 4 hours instead of 2. They could include meals at restaurants or visits to museums, but overnights would wait another 6 months. My parents' lawyer objected, but the judge emphasized Anna's young age and the need for gradual transitions. After court, I found Anna at school practicing for their spring concert. She ran to me excitedly, chattering about her solo line in the welcome song. Victory tastes even sweeter when Anna runs straight to her mom without hesitation. The judge saw right through all that money talk and recognized what really matters. 7 years of bedtime stories and butterfly love beats fancy lawyers any day. Other parents smiled and waved. The old whispers and stares finally faded. We'd become just another family in the pickup line, noteworthy only for Anna's enthusiasm and artistic flair. My parents attended the concert, sitting 3 rows behind us as designated by the visitation agreement. Anna waved to them before the show, then focused on her performance. She delivered her line perfectly, beaming with pride. Afterward, they congratulated her briefly before we left for our celebration dinner at Rosa's Diner. The supervised visits had taught my parents something money couldn't buy: actual relationship building. Without grand gestures and expensive bribes, they had to learn Anna's real interests. They discovered she preferred drawing to dolls, that she loved science books from the library, that she got cranky when overtired just like I had as a child. Summer arrived with new challenges. My parents requested permission to take Anna to their country club pool. The guardian ad litem supervised this visit, observing how they handled safety rules and Anna's comfort level. Anna enjoyed swimming but asked to go home after 2 hours, missing our usual Saturday afternoon routine of grocery shopping and laundry folding together. I'd started taking community college classes online, using the hours after Anna's bedtime to work toward an associate degree. Rosa had promoted me to shift supervisor, a small raise that meant everything. My parents' lawyer tried to use my education efforts against me, arguing it proved I couldn't provide adequately without improvement. The judge saw it differently. I was building a better future while maintaining stability. Anna started kindergarten that fall, a milestone that felt monumental after everything we'd overcome. I walked her to class that first day, fighting tears as she marched confidently into the classroom. My parents waited outside, permitted to see her off but not to accompany us inside. Anna hugged them briefly before running to join her new classmates. classes. The school routine brought new structure to our lives. Anna thrived academically, her early exposure to books paying off. Her teacher sent home glowing reports about her creativity and kindness. Parent-teacher conferences became mine alone, with my parents receiving updates through the formal channels we'd established. As winter approached, the year-mark review loomed. My parents pushed for overnight visits again, armed with a year of compliance and gradual relationship building. I documented Anna's continued stability, her academic success, her secure attachments. The Guardian ad litem conducted final interviews, spending time with Anna to assess her feelings about the arrangements. Anna told the Guardian she liked seeing her grandparents, but loved living with me. She described our routines with obvious comfort: morning pancakes on Sundays, library trips on Wednesdays, movie nights on Fridays. When asked about sleeping at her grandparents' house, she seemed uncertain, wondering if I would be lonely without her. The final hearing felt different. My parents had softened, perhaps finally understanding that force wouldn't work. Their lawyer presented a modest request: one overnight per month, building gradually to weekend visits. They acknowledged Anna's primary attachment to me while seeking to deepen their relationship with her. I agreed to the graduated overnight plan, with conditions. The first few would include transition objects from home, phone calls before bed, and pick up early Sunday morning. Anna would have veto power if she felt uncomfortable. The judge approved this arrangement, praising all parties for putting Anna's needs first. That first overnight terrified me more than the entire custody battle. I packed Anna's favorite stuffed elephant, her special blanket, the book we'd been reading together. She seemed excited about the adventure, but asked repeatedly if I'd be okay alone. I assured her I had plenty to do, hiding my plans to spend the night anxiously cleaning and checking my phone. My parents picked her up Saturday afternoon, following the checklist I'd provided about bedtime routines and food preferences. Anna hugged me goodbye with her usual enthusiasm, then climbed into their car clutching her overnight bag. I watched until they turned the corner, then went inside to wait. Rosa appeared an hour later with Chinese takeout and a movie. She'd anticipated my anxiety and refused to let me spiral alone. We ate lo mein and watched comedies while I compulsively checked my phone. Anna called it bedtime as promised, chattering about the pizza they'd made and the story Grandma had read. She sounded happy but asked if I'd eaten dinner too. Sunday morning arrived after a sleepless night. My parents returned Anna exactly on time, and she burst through the door talking non-stop about her adventure. She'd slept well, eaten pancakes for breakfast, and drawn pictures with her grandmother, but she was clearly happy to be home, immediately returning to her usual activities. The overnights became routine over the following months. Anna adjusted well, developing her own relationships with her grandparents while maintaining her primary bond with me. They learned her quirks and preferences through experience rather than assumption. She returned from visits with stories and artwork, but always settled back into our life seamlessly. As Anna's 6th birthday approached, I reflected on how far we'd come. The custody arrangement had evolved into something workable, if not ideal. My parents had learned to be grandparents rather than replacement parents. Anna had additional people who loved her, even if the relationships came with legal boundaries and scheduled visits. The birthday party planning became an exercise in cooperation. My parents wanted to contribute, and I agreed they could bring the cake. Anna requested a science theme, and they found a bakery that could create a solar system design. They attended the party at the park, mingling with Rosa and the diner families who'd become our chosen tribe. Watching Anna blow out 6 candles surrounded by people who'd fought for her in different ways, I felt something shift. The hypervigilance that had defined the past 2 years began to ease. We'd found our new normal, imperfect, but stable. Anna was thriving despite, or perhaps because of, the complex family structure we'd built. My parents had learned hard lessons about love versus control. I'd learned to advocate for Anna and myself against forces that seemed insurmountable. Most importantly, Anna had learned that she was worth fighting for, that love comes in many forms, and that her small voice mattered in big decisions. The custody arrangement would continue to evolve as Anna grew. There would be more negotiations, more hearings, more adjustments, but the foundation was solid now. Anna knew where home was, who her primary attachment figure was, and that she had a mother who'd move mountains to keep her safe and loved. That night after the party, as I tucked Anna into bed in our small apartment, she asked if we'd always live here. I told her maybe not always, but wherever we lived, we'd be together. She smiled sleepily, satisfied with an answer that promised presence over place. I watched her drift off, still wearing traces of birthday cake frosting, and knew we'd won something more valuable than any court could grant: the simple right to be mother and daughter, building our life one ordinary day at a time. The way this mom went from being scared about that first overnight to seeing Anna come home happy and chatty about her adventures shows how much they've all grown. See you in the next story.